As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Hey everybody, Jamila Hokanson will be joining me shortly. I love chatting with folks, whether they have initials or letters behind their name or achievements behind their name or not. We all have kind of our day. We're history makers, her story makers and his story makers, regardless of whether you have an MD or an MS or an MD or an MBA behind your name. But Jamila Hokanson does have those, an MBA, an MS, and a doctor. She's the instructor of psychiatry at the Yale School of Medicine, and she'll be joining me shortly for us to really have a robust 55-minute conversation about words. You may have heard these words: psilocybin, magic mushrooms, LSD, peyote, ayahuasca, MDMA, just words that might not have a particular specific connotation, or you might have heard them in conversation pertaining to really health, just quest for health and awareness and stability in our lives. Years ago, you'd hear this term called snake oil, or people selling things that weren't really legitimate. But it's not only important, but imperative that we really inform ourselves of really some discoveries that are taking place. I won't say earth-shattering, but mental realignment discoveries, mental realignment research, and just what does it mean to be human on this planet, and to be, I would say, just to be human. And can we, as Rodney King has said, can we all get along? I think that might be the eternal, hopefully not an eternal, perpetual question, and hopefully we can get some answers to that question. Can we all get along? And can we feel good about ourselves? So these terms, trauma, depression, anxiety, paranoia. If you look at some of the psychological textbooks about categories of mental disorders, you'll see a whole plethora of names. But basically, those names are just, I think, just indicators that we're not centered. We're not happy, perhaps. And Jamila is going to chat with us about some clinical trials that she's involved with that might, I shouldn't say might, that are designed to address how can we be happy with ourselves, be happy with others, and to kind of contribute to the prosperity of the universe. She's just connecting with us shortly, and so give us like 10 or so seconds, and she'll be right with us. Jamila, good morning.
Good morning.
I was given some brief introductions of you, and this is going to sound sexist, but I'm looking at your picture from the Yale Yale School of Medicine, and then I'm looking at your hairstyle now, but guys change their hairstyles also. I'm surprised you haven't commented on mine. I chose this lock journey, dread journey, whatever people want to call it, back in 2000, and rumor has it that it's a little bit beyond maybe 24 or so years since then. So we all have our ways of changing up, right?
Yes.
Pursuing our bliss. I am going to give Jamila. I am going to give you a chance to talk. So literally, I am going to give you a chance to talk. But let me just say, and since I have the mic and since this is my show, I turned 70 75 last week. And I mentioned that just when people, I think it's important for people to know that every day is a blessing. You know, the eternal. We had this term that the present, but it's an eternal present. So I'm pleased to be here. But I start off with that, and hopefully it's not too personal. Just to say that this life journey is still somewhat mysterious. I
Mhm.
can't, people ask me, Tom, what have you learned after your 75 years? The best I can say is I'm still learning. Tell me what you know. I
Yes.
tell me what you know. Help a brother out. Help,
We're all on a journey.
help, help, help me out. Help me out. Keep me from going to not Niantic because I haven't had a sex change, but Summers or whatever the prisons might be. But I was mentioning, Jamila, just in the intro with your MBA and MS and MD. That's quite I love when folks have these characters and these words behind and letters behind their name, but we all, whether we have them or not, we're all kind of have gifts to share. So let's jump right in. I want to start, Jamila, with tell us. Let's give the promo on the clinical trials and what's involved there, and then we'll kind of unpack them from another 30 or 40 minutes. But I want to kind of just at the top of this show, just let people know. Really, I think there's two or three clinical trials that you're involved with, correct?
Yeah, I'm involved in a few different ones.
A few different ones.
There, which I, won't speak to in specifically because we can't necessarily do that on the radio show, but I will give people hopefully some information to kind of connect with us and then they can get a little more
Indeed. Yeah,
details.
how people can, yeah, indeed.
Mhm.
So the first one might be,
Yeah, so there's several of them actually at Yale, and I'm involved in a few of them, not all of them. But Yale is sort of venturing on this whole psychedelic research sort of journey in terms of trying to figure out if this is really going to be a treatment modality that will be helpful for people. I work for one particular PI, but there are a number of other PIs, principal investigators. But there are a number of other principal investigators at Yale who are also doing psychedelic research. And so people can find out more information about the trials in general on Yale's website, as well as clinicaltrials.gov. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the seminal studies that are out there, both at Yale and also just elsewhere too.
now you mentioned word seminal. Now break it down. Now I only have an eighth grade education, so give me a thesaurus
I guess
paraphrase
I
for
should say,
seminal.
I mean, there are a lot of, this is a whole field that's exploding. So there are like actually a lot of people doing lots of different studies, but there are a few that I personally feel are going to be foundational in terms of their results, because they're probably going to really probably be more broader appeal for people if and when these substances are abused. And so one of them is depression. So there's a phase 3 USONA trial that phase 3. So the clinical trials have different phases. Phase 1 is kind of like animal testing, just so you can see if a compound is safe in an animal. And then it goes to phase 2 to like small pilot studies to see if it's safe in humans. Usually they start with healthy controls first, and then people with indications. And then phase 3 is actually looking at people with the disease and then seeing if the treatment is actually effective for them. So to have a clinical trial now and there are actually several phase 3 clinical trials for psychedelics is very promising because that is really the final step needed before the organization can go to FDA for approval based on their phase 3 results, and then the FDA will then make a determination from there, and if so, then they can actually then market it and then provide it to the general population. They enter what they call a phase 4 clinical trial, which is not really a trial per se. It's more so a monitoring of the new treatment introduced to society for any kind of like effects that may be happening rolled up. So that being said, to have a trial that's in phase 3 is actually pretty significant. And there are a few different phase 3 clinical trials. So one is depression with psilocybin is entering into phase 3 trials across the United States. So I think for people that have, and that's for people that have major depression disorder, diagnosed with symptoms that they have it may not necessarily have, they don't have to have failed medications. Some they may have to. For some clinical trials, they have to actually have tried other treatments and not done well on them. But some they just have to have current symptoms to be able to get access to the clinical trials. And that usually right now it's historically, it's been a 1-dose psilocybin study, usually around 25 milligrams. Now more and more clinical trials are now doing multiple dosings. So people, could be eligible for up to 4 doses of psilocybin spread across 6 weeks if they continue to have, depressive symptoms, for example. So that is really exciting to actually see that. I think that is also that kind of modeling of a clinical trial, which is where people can have multiple doses, is likely how it's going to be introduced in clinical practice anyway. And so to have a clinical trial that's sort of trying to model that and determine the effect, I think is very promising.
Excellent, excellent. And again, if someone, just in terms of the teaser that you've just given, when I say teaser, I'm not disparaging, just the inspiration for pursuing this discovery. Folks can kind of get involved or find out more. Where can they go in this regard?
Clinicaltrial.gov.
Excellent. So
And
that's
and type in psilocybin as the drug, and type in depression as the symptom, and then it'll pull up all of the psilocybin depression studies in the United States and sort of what their status is in recruiting.
excellent, excellent, excellent. And just in the United States, not in any other countries?
No, actually, I think they do. I think clinicaltrials.gov is I don't quote me on this, but actually I think it does actually show you international ones as well.
Tremendous. And is that the main one you'd like to talk about today, or do you?
No, that's one. The other ones that are have either passed phase 3 or entering phase 3 by a number of different companies is MDMA for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So people that have had like a significant trauma or multiple traumas in their life, by which is causing them to have some kind of impairment and difficulty presently. Being treated with MDMA. And again, that also, there are also clinical trials that are also doing a multiple dose strategy of MDMA, where, you get it, and then over the course of either a month or so, they can get redosed if they continue to have symptoms. And so they can get multiple doses of that for the treatment. So that is also entering or has completed phase 3, depending on the company. And so also clinicaltrials.gov will list those. So MDMA is it actually has a very long chemical name. So you just call it by a short name.
Yes,
just type that in. Yes. Other studies that are happening across the United States, there is psilocybin for obsessive compulsive disorder studies. And so again, people that have symptoms of that, and more trials are going to a multi-phase approach as well. So that one, there's also trials that either do single dose or trials that do multiple doses of psilocybin for that treatment. And then there are trials that are being launched, both here in New Haven as well as in the United States as well. That is more looking at not necessarily a diagnosis, so you don't have to have be diagnosed with depression or PTSD. You just gotta have a psychiatric symptom, which could be low mood or low energy or something that's causing you to not do well.
I'm interested. Sign me up. We have to end this show. I have to go to that link right now. I'm sorry. I'll get back to you in the next time. We got to reschedule. Okay, continue. I'll sign up after this show. I'll be patient.
Yes. So that's, so there are trials that look at that from open label standpoint. Open label means that, so trials can either be open label is that you know what you're getting. So there's no guessing, the day that you're taking the pill, that is what you're getting. There are trials that are double blinded or placebo controlled, where you don't know. Both you, double blinded means you, as well as the facilitator, as well as the person that's reading you, do not know at all what you got. You can either get the active treatment of the psychedelic substance, or you can get a placebo. And so obviously, in terms of data, efficacy, or how well these drugs work, having a placebo-controlled trial is actually something that is somewhat now, considered gold standard, though it's really hard in a psychedelic trial to actually blind. So that is the current debate among, how we actually do this, because you really can't blind very well a psychedelic substance. But anyway, that being said, there are double blind, there are trials that are more placebo-controlled, and there are trials that are more open label.
And again, folks can find out about that how?
It's clinicaltrials.gov.
Great.
Yes.
And type in.
Yep, type in, so you type in the drug that you're looking, psychedelic substance you're looking for. So the most common ones in the United States are psilocybin, MDMA, though there are also a huge number of others that are being launched in the United States. You can just type in psychedelics too, and then type in what the indication that you have to see if there may be a trial that may fit.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. 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 Let's spend the next 40 or so minutes, just hearing you just talk, and we've had a chance to chat before. It seems to me that when you started your career and your journey and your passion, that this, I mean, psychedelics just entered your consciousness, what, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years
Well, not even
ago?
that. It was like it's 6 years ago.
But 6 years ago. But before that, you were on this healing journey as well. Reflect on that a little bit. Was this a curveball for you? Was it something that you saw a new opportunity? I mean, you could have taken another path from a medical research standpoint. I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, so my original path, from a psychiatric standpoint, was going to be to work with children.
Mm,
And when I first went to medical school, I thought that I was either going to be a pediatrician or a pediatric surgeon.
mm-hmm.
Um, I was not going to be a psychiatrist because when I was 16, I was part of this pre-med program that was run by Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's to introduce, more and more, youth to medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And so as part of that, we got to rotate with the then first year medical doctors in each of the disciplines. So I had like internal medicine for a month, I had surgery for a month,
Ah,
and I got to
hmm.
rotate and just shadow like the first
Uh-huh.
year doctor and just learn what they do. And so, and they were all fascinating except for psychiatry because this is a PG radio show.
Uh,
Is this
yes, yes. You can paraphrase if you're
I
if
can
you're not
paraphrase, okay.
not
Yes.
sure.
So I got put with a psychiatrist that was running a group for people who had done things that probably a young girl should not know about.
Yes, yes, sure,
And
sure,
I was
sure.
like, there's no way I'm going to be a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was kind of how I entered medical school. But then I got put my first psychiatry rotation. I did it first. God knows I'm not going to do it. And so I went there and they put me on a unit for kids
Mm,
and I fell in love.
mm.
And I was like, wow, these kids are suffering. And I just felt bonded to them. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a psychiatrist. And that's what happened. Yeah, that changed my trajectory.
Let me unpack that a little bit, or ask you to elaborate a little bit on your word choice, and not that I'm trying to pretend to be your psychiatrist at the moment, but when you said fall in love, not that you weren't a masochist at that point.
Mm-mm.
So elaborate on it's a passion, a calling, just
Yeah, I
an
just felt
emotional commitment.
honestly, what I saw in the kids a reflection of somewhat of my own life.
Mm,
Not that, my parents did absolutely the best they could, and I completely love them. But we did not have access I didn't have access as a kid to mental health.
mm,
And looking back as an adult at that time, I knew that, gosh, had I had access to mental health treatment, I wonder if the challenges that I faced in my youth, I would have been able to maybe weather them a little bit
mm,
better.
mm, mm,
And
mm,
seeing these kids sort of also in their youth suffering
mm-hmm,
mentally, I felt huge compassion for them
mm.
and their bravery for even, being able to, at that age, be able to kind of interact with the mental health system. And it
Yes.
just kind of ignited in me just really this understanding, this empathy, this compassion, and a desire to really want to help them. Oh, there you are.
So last word I heard was empathy.
Yeah, an empathy and a compassion and desire to really want to help them.
And juxtapose, if this is a fair question, just in terms of what you were talking about earlier, and now the youth thing, and certainly these issues of youth mental health are with us raging maybe in a pandemic fashion. Are some of the clinical trials, I assume that the young people, is there an age limit? Do you have to be over 21
Right now, so over 21 for most of them, though more and more trials are going to 18, so dropping the age
Uh-huh.
to 18. There are not, at this time that I know of, any active trials for under the age of 18. There is one trial in California that is, I think, either pushing through for approval, or hopefully maybe they've already gotten it by this time. I'm not sure. You can check clinicaltrials.gov, but they're a young adult study looking at PTSD and MDMA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
the approval process to get a study up and running is just kind of onerous, and which it should be, to make sure that, you know, we're doing studies that are going to protect people and make sure they're safe. And so obviously with kids, it's even more so, that much detail. And so, you know, I know that they had launched at least that process, and I'm not sure where they're at in terms of the approval. That's out in California.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Although I do have the mic, and although this is my show, if I pose a question, because my shows are live, which I certainly love doing, if I pose a question to you that you want me to retract, you can say that, Tom, you know, ask me later, or you could do a Trump or a Biden response. But your MBA, you've been involved with systems and organizations, whatever titles we want to use, uh, observing human behavior at so many different levels. Uh, People are hearing in the general, all of us are not addicts to this, to what's going on here in terms of psilocybin and peyote and mescaline and magic mushrooms and LSD and ayahuasca. But the social, these words are going to be proliferating wherever you look in terms of the culture, the movies, news. What should people be aware of, or be concerned about, or even just to do their due diligence? And also black market. You follow where I'm going. This is a
Mhm.
new, like a new frontier in terms of
Yeah, so
snake oil versus
exactly.
honesty.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so this is a new frontier. There's a lot of hype around psychedelics. And so with that comes a lot of opportunists who
Indeed.
may be taking kind of advantage of people's vulnerability, and their really, you know, desire to kind of heal. And to be quite honest, I mean, mental health in general, um, is hopefully inadequate. And we
Mm,
don't have really good treatments for some of our most significant disorders that are really kind of impacting like the general population at large. I mean, depression is projected to be one of the top number one, if not top three, disabilities in the world.
mm,
And to, you know, have a slew of medications, antidepressant medications that have not really had any significant innovation over the last few decades is actually pretty sad actually.
mm-hmm,
And so people are suffering because these may not, you know, for even for people that take antidepressants, clinical trials have shown that only maybe a third of them, if that, will even respond, which means you have two-thirds of the people that will not at all respond to any of the antidepressant treatments that they try.
mm,
And
mm,
so that being said, I think you know, if people may become a little bit either eager or just in dire need of treatment, and people may take advantage of that. And so you really have to be careful of that snake oil. To the black market is probably going to continue to grow and be out there. Taking substances on the black market, a lot of risk. You don't know exactly what's in them.
mm-hmm,
And people may report that, oh yeah, this is psilocybin or this is MDMA, and you don't actually know, and then you take it and consume it. The other risk that is out there that, you know, for me personally as a researcher, you know, there's lots of theories that people, you know, have about psychedelic use and recreation. I don't necessarily knock that at all. I mean, you know, people may have that desire. My personally, I'm very much a conservative person in
mm-hmm,
terms of risk. And especially people with mental health issues, taking a psychedelic may unleash some things in the moment that may be difficult for the person to either understand or bear. And doing that in an unsupported manner may actually cause more harm than good. So
mm,
really making sure that there is a significant support system that understands what a psychedelic substance is, what to expect that may arise, and how to help the person through those experiences, I think is something to definitely be mindful of and consider of if you have a serious mental illness
mm-hmm,
that you're
mm-hmm.
seeking treatment for.
Share that's really helpful. Share with folks, if you would, um, from a to some degree a layperson standpoint, why these treatment modalities might be helpful. What are they doing or enabling a person to rediscover, or and again, if you want to throw in some neuroscience word, that's fine too. But you know, people take aspirin and Advil all the time, and I took my meloxicam today, and so, but what's the if not the theory? Because again, the clinical trials are uncovering some evidence-based research. What is it actually doing or causing people to be better, to heal, to improve?
Yeah, I think that actually is an interesting question because I don't think the field as a whole has really a direct or good answer.
Hmm.
There are many theories as to how they may be working, but there really is nothing definitive that we can say at this time. I can just tell you what I've seen from my,
Mm-hmm.
working with patients in the clinical trials as to who I have seen respond to psychedelic substances and who I've seen have not respond.
Hmm.
And we're publishing a paper here, shortly next year, which is kind of detailing this. Um,
Okay.
but some of the themes that I personally have seen is that people that tend to generally respond to this treatment are the ones who, one, have a motivation to get better,
Hmm.
two, the resources around them to support them in their change. Because, especially at the high doses that we give in psychedelic trials, these substances can change a person's view of themselves
Hmm.
and how they relate to themselves as well as their psychiatric disorder. It may not necessarily take away the disorder. In fact, that generally is the case. It's not a magic pill at all, but it changes a person's relationship with it.
Hmm.
And in that, when they change, they go back to that same system that they came from. If that system is one that is toxic or that is one that is trying to get them to be the same, basically not validate for them this change, it can actually probably do more harm than good and make a person feel worse. But if the system they go back to is supportive and open to this person's new view of themselves, then that can actually be very healing for the person
Hmm.
to finally overcome this disorder that they've been kind of struggling with, for the rest of their life. The other thing I see is that it helps a person have a really compassionate view of themselves. So a person that has the ability to really tap into compassion, it
Hmm.
tends to be better than the person that doesn't have that ability because it gives them this compassion. Because most people that have psychiatric disorder, not most, but I see what I see in the patients that we treat here is that there's a sense of shame that comes with having this, this illness. Either they weren't able to show up to their family or friends in the way they want to, or they're not doing what they want to do at work the way they want to. There's a lot of shame and guilt they take upon themselves. And so psychedelics really help to give this compassionate view of themselves in a
Mm-hmm.
way that they can then forgive themselves and then move on.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. 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 About five questions come to mind, but I guess I want to be selective and not too adversarial to you. But let me get spit it out. Let me get spit it out. Uh, is there a side of Jamila where that you when you go to the supermarket, are you just a person or are you thinking of your background? I'll tell you where I'm going.
Uh,
Is there a side of you sometimes, and I'll ask the question, if there's a side of you that is it easy to separate or difficult to separate your professional expertise and your experiences with just being a person on the planet? So what I'm trying to get to is if you were at a tea party or out with the girls or whatever, or your church or your club or wherever might go, some people will say that the world is so toxic
mhm,
that why are we trying to heal me to adjust to this chaos? The world is
mhm,
crazy. I'm not crazy. The world is crazy. Is that a
mhm.
oversimplification, or is there some resonance there?
Oh no, there's definitely some resonance there. And I think also not only is there resonance there, but I think this dilemma particularly becomes important when you try to talk about young adults, right? Because
Hmm.
they are the product of their system. And so when are we treating if we treat young adults with psychedelic substances, are we really pathologizing them as the problem when in fact it was really their system that failed them?
Hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
So if you were talking to change makers or politicians or policymakers, what would you like to say to them uh, to kind of construct a more healthier external environment?
Yeah, honestly, what I would like to see is clinical trials that really look at addressing that particular dilemma. I don't know if one will ever exist because, we are a capitalistic society and there may not be money in sort of addressing that question. Uh, our society,
I can pull out my checkbook now. So just, just give me the number and I'll send you the check and deposit. But so what would you like to see? Let's vision imagine for a second.
yeah. So what I want to see is a psychedelic trial that really looks at providing psychedelic support and assistance to the community, not just the individual. And where
Hmm.
I'm going with this is that if you look at, we are taking a page out of indigenous practices. I mean, we're trying to extract one particular piece of it, which is the actual substance, and try to market that and say that's the healing ingredient. When in fact, in all of the cases that these substances have been used in indigenous practices for thousands of years, it's not the individual that takes the substance, it's the community that actually takes the substance together in order to heal the community. And not only that, but it's free. So you don't have people that are charging thousands of dollars to heal. It's like the community takes these as a kind of religious or a ritualistic aspect to their community in a way to help everybody else gain a greater sense of community. And that then community helps the community to heal, but also the individual, if that makes sense. And so really sort of embedding this treatment in a community type based model where it is trying to help the entire community understand and heal. And that may or may not be taken like a substance, but honestly. Entering not only is a consciousness, it does not have to actually have a molecule to do that. There are many different ways by which people can enter that state, not just psychedelic substance. And so it's really helping to study and actually see if we kind of can really focus ourselves on community and taking care of one another and practices that do that, can we actually then alleviate mental health suffering?
Well, I mean, let's drill down, if you're willing, let's drill down a little more in terms of what are some of these. Are you talking about meditation? Are you talking about virtual reality? What other ways practices are you perhaps suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, so the number of other practices can help get there. Yoga, doing very deep yoga consistently can sometimes cause a person to transcend to these different spaces. Certainly, meditation, long-standing meditation practices can do that. Breathing can actually induce the state as well. And so that taking walks in nature. I mean, there are like so many different ways by which people can slow down their life and enter a state that is different from the current reality and access and tap into a greater sense of self and belonging. Oh, there we are.
So we had the greater sense of self, and I apologize. This certainly must be on my end with the.
No, a greater sense of self, peace, and belonging.
So, are you suggesting that everybody on the planet should try to practice something to make us as a global enterprise ecosystem healthy?
Oh, that'd be great. I would love that. I mean, and one of the things I see this at is in I think more and more school systems are really kind of seeing the benefit of alternative ways of sort of helping kids and youth get in tap with their emotions. One, in fact, naming the emotion, and then also them introducing practices like either yoga or meditation, or just really helping kids to be able to slow down and have a better relationship with other people. So really teaching kindness and respect as a foundational principle in the school system, for example. Yeah, so I mean, that would be awesome if we could as a nation get there.
Fascinating. So I guess there was some discussion years ago about fluoride in the water or something. Are you saying that we should put some psilocybin in our water system and then just I mean, I'm curious. I'm intrigued.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think, and I'm still a strong believer that the molecule itself is it's a catalyst. It's not necessarily the thing that's causing the change in people. Personally, I think, because I have no evidence necessarily to support that, but just from my personal witnessing of transformations in our research patients that have come through, that the ones that have really responded already were on that trajectory, and the substances really helped them get there faster. The ones that have not responded were not even on that path to begin with. So adding the substance into the water, it's not going to help actually. And in fact, I mean, because people can get psilocybin on the street. I mean, people have been taking psilocybin MDMA for years. This is not the first time. And so, but you don't have spontaneous healing of trauma when you go to like a rave, for example. That's not happening. And so it's not necessarily the molecule itself that's causing it. I think, again, it's the mindset the person has when they go into the experience, and then the setting that is around them to be healing and supportive, that can help lead to transformation. And that's just my personal view. There are theories that are really looking at stripping that away and just looking at the molecule, because we are a pharmaceutical driven country, and so you can't sell things on mindset of person and the setting around them that doesn't make money. And so they're trying to look into can we just give the molecule to somebody and see if that goes. So I think it'd be interesting to see how that pans out.
I have one of the Oculus, the virtual headsets, and Trip is one of the programs that I use, and I've been reading some research where people say that I've been doing it for like 2 years or so, a year and a half, but even that kind of experience can help, and I find it useful. It certainly the graphics are fascinating and interesting. Fast forward to me for me, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years for now. Do you think you'll still be in this space, or do you think the industry, and I use this term loosely, the industry will be changing so much that you'll be head of a pharmaceutical company, or you'll be an investor, or you'll have your own company, or you'll have your own product, or?
Yes, I know. This is a second career for me. So my first life, as you mentioned, was business, and it was a very, good business career, and I really enjoyed it. And so medicine is sort of like my second and final stage. And so I'm looking at trying to, figure out my own personal legacy and kind of how I want to contribute to humanity. And for me, that calling is around more so the individual touch. And so really just meeting people where they're at in their healing journey, and myself being a catalyst to help them get to where they want to go. That's where I personally see myself. Whether or not this field of psychedelic industry is going to be there in the future, I think remains to be seen. I think there is a huge bubble around it right now, a lot of hype. And that is sort of slowly bursting at the moment. And so it remains to be seen what's left at the end of it. I do think they will be still a kind of market or availability for psychedelic treatment. And I think this is just going to be one of the tools that a psychiatrist has in the toolbox by which to treat somebody. Because again, not everybody's going to respond. And so, this is not a psychedelic. I'm not necessarily a point of psychedelic for all. Some people may be. But I think you have to be very careful about who we give these substances to make sure that is right for them. Because, if we give it to the either a person is not ready for it, it can actually be more harming. It's helpful, and so we have to be cognizant of that. So this is going to be one of the many tools that psychiatrists have by which they can treat a person.
You're an instructor. I guess as we have about 15 or so more minutes, just as the spirit moves and questions might come to your mind, but you're an instructor of psychiatry. So that means you have fledglings under you. I'm sorry, I'm just a little relaxed today. That you have bright minds that you're interacting with and tutoring and mentoring and reciprocal mind sharing. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so right now, my kind of my educational initiatives at Yale are primarily currently right now with psychiatry residents. So these are basically young psychiatry doctors that have entered this field, and particularly those who are interested more so in learning how to do psychedelic treatment. Because I think when these are introduced, it likely is going to be very similar to what's in the clinical trials, which is around in a very intensive therapeutic approach. And that is very different for how we train in medical school as well as in residency. Because the way in which at least most of the clinical trials are doing, it's like you allow the patient to lead, not the psychiatrist. And so it's a little bit counterintuitive how to do that. And so I think there's going to be significant training that needs to happen. And so one of my goals at Yale is to actually put together a psychedelic education curriculum that will hopefully become a fellowship in the next 10 years for inspiring young psychiatrists as well as non-psychiatrists to come through who are looking to get more so hands-on approach as to how to do this particular way of holding somebody who is in need of healing in a way that is what we call non-directive, or allowing them to kind of set the path of healing, and we're so more so the catalyst to help them get there. So yes, I train people that are interested in that right now, and particularly with psychiatry residents, but we'll also be open up to more and more people as we start to, really solidify our curriculum and stuff.
And do you find that, is there are more and more residents interested in this area? Or is it like a buzzword, or is it like a fad? I'm just curious of the trend.
No, our initial cohort that we have for this year, our inaugural cohort is it's 5 residents, and Yale has roughly about 20 residents a year, so 5 out of the 80. So not the whole class, but there are a handful of residents are interested, and I think there may be more and more. But this is really a particular type of resident that wants this, because honestly, these are quite long days. This is not your typical 30-minute psych med visit where I talk to you, how your symptoms, okay, good, here's a pill, see me in 3 months. This is, I'm sitting with you as a patient for up to 6 hours in a psychedelic session. There's intensive therapy that happens before the session for multiple days and multiple weeks. Intensive therapy happens after the session. And so it takes a psychiatrist that's really willing to actually do that for a particular patient, which not all psychiatrists are, which is fine. So I don't think not every psychiatrist is going to necessarily want to gravitate towards this, but I do think there are more people that, especially people who are looking for just the non sort of pharmacal management approach to this healing. This may be a particular modality they're interested in and may come seek us out for training.
Just one more question on this note. Is there are there competing psychiatric schools, or do you see in the future that there can be a merger and a kind of a
Oh, no. Yeah, no, there's definitely competing schools. So there are 2 primary schools of thought, and then there's probably some place in the middle. But on the very extreme, you have the school of thought, which is, that it's all about the drug. Nothing else matters. It's not about the person, it's not about the setting, it's not about their past, whatever they had in life. It's the pill is the thing that's going to cure them. And then you take a pill every single day. And so take this pill, psychedelic pill every single day, and you're going to get healing. And I think that's true. I think for certain, we see that with ketamine, for example. Ketamine, because I'm also, involved in ketamine research. But ketamine, you have the school of thought where I'm going to give you a ketamine drug that you just come in for every few weeks and get like this drug in the clinical setting. And I'm only going to, no therapy, nothing to combine with it. And you're going to hopefully get your depression healed. And people do. People have depression remission. But then there's a school of thought that says, well, you know what? You can get even more healing if you combine ketamine with therapy. And so now I'm going to do therapy with you while you do ketamine. And that's going to give you even a greater sense of healing. And then you don't need to come in and get ketamine every single week. You can just do this, how many times, and hopefully that will help you give you permanent healing. And that has also been the case, though we don't have clinical trials that show that, because again, it's not profitable to fund those clinical trials. So these are only, people that just do this as a clinical practice and then report, that their patients get better. And I think the same thing's going to happen with psychedelics. So there are going to be companies that just obviously market the pill, and the pill will probably likely have no psychedelic effect except for the neurobiological effect. So you're not going to have any kind of visions or whatever, because you can't do that with the pill if you're going to give it to them at home. And so they're going to market that, and people may get better. And then you have people that say, no, you really need the therapy to really do it. And I don't want to give you a pill every single day. I want to be able to hopefully help you heal and permanently heal. So I'm going to just do this intensive therapy piece of it with the psychoactive compound, a few times, and hopefully get you that healing. Those are the 2 schools of thoughts out there. And I think both are very valid.
Interesting. So you're really teasing me now. Who's the arbitrator? Is there a czar, or who decides, or is it still just an open ideological warfare? I mean, I'm not being overly dramatic, but
honestly, I think ultimately it's going to be the consumers that decide. Right? So, it will go, the money, the decision will be based on what people are willing to pay for, because the drug is probably much cheaper. Giving somebody a drug every single day is probably significantly cheaper than treating them with a traditional psychotherapy, psychoactive, psychedelic kind of therapy session, what requires, 1 or 2 therapists to be with you in the drug session and do all this types of therapy with it. That's actually pretty expensive when you add up, the time that psychiatric therapist has to, then you have to pay for that. And so, I think ultimately that's going to be the balance. My fear is this, is that there's going to be inequality in that balance, right? Because if the drug is going to be cheaper, then those with less means are going to probably just do more so the pill route and not access maybe the deeper healing that may be available in the more intensive therapy route. And that's going to be more for people that have financial means. And I would love to see it where we can also, like anybody can choose both. And it's not a matter of how much you have, but if you are the type of person that really engages with therapy and can be held in that space and you find healing that way, that's great. You can go that route. And if you're the person that just doesn't want to deal with any therapist, you just want to take the pill and not have to engage in therapy, then you can go that route. It doesn't really matter, how much you have. Ultimately, the other person that's going to be a decision maker is the insurance companies, because obviously if we can get this paid by insurance, that will help kind of hopefully equalize a little bit in terms of the playing field as to what people have access to and what they can afford. And so I think those would be the two big key players, the patient and then the insurance companies.
Well, you got your hands full. I thought I had my hand full transparency this morning. My mind was just on so many things. I'm an elected official here in New Haven and as an older person, and it's not a overwhelming job, but some days you just the thought of what you're responsible for can kind of, I won't say make me depressed, although I will sign up for your course. I will sign up for this course right after this show. But but I hear you saying that there might, or it looks like there will be a pill or pills available in the future. I mean, same way people take your high blood pressure medicine.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean, there are other companies out there that are currently innovating around that space that are, doing clinical trial testings, and you can also join those clinical trials and sign up for that. Mostly international, but there may be some in the United States that are happening too. But yeah, I think that will likely be a possibility as well as the traditional psychotherapy approach.
Okay. So in the next, we have 10 minutes as we kind of wind down. What's the spirit telling you that at this moment in terms of what we should be discussing?
I think so. One of the things that's on my mind as I kind of help with, setting the stage for clinical trials, here at Yale in the research lab that I currently support. One of the things that I particularly am cognizant of is that the psychedelic clinical trials currently are very heterogeneous in terms of who has access to them. And I am trying to figure out how can we make this a little bit more accessible to those who have different backgrounds of various kinds, both sexual orientation, both the racial orientations, because I think that we need to do that in order to have sort of generalizability of these trials. However, that being said, again, these trials that we currently have designed are very time intensive. And, again, this all comes down to means. A person may not have the means to take off work to be able to engage in our trials. And so I'm trying to be cognizant of how can I help design or put in elements into the clinical trials that hopefully allow for greater accessibility to people who may not have necessarily the means by which to do these trials.
Is there any remuneration for participation in the
Yes,
trials?
there is, but it's hopefully inadequate in my mind. Right. So, there is pay, but you're talking about, I don't know, maybe $800 or $1,000 or so. But which doesn't necessarily equate to the amount of time the person needs to take off in order to do that. And so we need to really think about how can we provide childcare? Is that an option? What does it look like? That gets into a whole liability thing around that. But can we kind of partner with local childcare centers to be able to offer, when we pay them to be able to take care of people's kids, or how can we provide groceries, right? Because people work because they need to put food on the table. So can we provide grocery assistance as to when they're engaged in our trials, we give them money to at least cover their grocery bills or dinner for the family or what have you. And then lastly, again, I met people, these trials help people have a different relationship with themselves and their disorder. And so that means psychoeducation in their family system or community that they come from. Because you don't want the person coming back to this community having this profound experience, and then the people's like, "What? What are you talking about? Like, what?" And then they end up ends up being a negative experience for them. So we have to provide psychoeducation to the communities in which the person comes from to help educate them on like what to expect and how to support the person. So I mean, this is a number of things that is on my mind about how we can address that effectively in our clinical trials.
Or that's helpful. And obviously one of the purposes of my having this content communion with you is to help beat the drum in terms of recruitment. But you've also, my takeaway is that we need to do another show in the fall uh, about once a person comes out, how the community can respond. So that's kind of a subliminal, or maybe not too
Hmm.
subliminal, request
Yeah.
that we continue this conversation. And if any of your colleagues are also interested in kind of chatting with me in
Yes,
this regard.
they are.
Uh,
Yeah. Yes, I do have a number of colleagues that I can send your way.
so,
Mhm.
send them my way.
Okay.
The more free trials I can sign up for, and more people I can know. And on that note, people can kind of find out about the trials. How?
Clinicaltrials.gov is one, and then also you can check the Yale website if you type go to Yale and .edu, and then they have like a research, I guess, search bar. You can type research and type in psychedelics, and it'll pull up all the psychedelic trials that are currently at Yale as well, so that people can kind of look and see based on eligibility, if they can meet
Hmm.
criteria for one, they can then apply right through there. Oh, the other way too is that if people are in the Yale system, they're then a CDL doctor, or they have but they can have an Epic chart, which Epic is the healthcare system that Yale uses.
Yes. Yes.
In that, if you go to your My Chart, you can actually sign up at the bottom of your My Chart for I'm interested in clinical trials at Yale.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
then you put in the kind of, what you're interested in, and it will automatically send you notifications when certain clinical trials meet your criteria.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's, with about 5 more minutes, let's circle back to the pre-psychedelic Jamila, and your passion and working with youth, et cetera. Uh, if you're a queen or czar of the world in terms of school systems, have you been interacting or talking to superintendents of school systems or health
No,
providers, or
not yet. So that is
not yet?
something that I'm interested in as I sort of figure out my role here at Yale.
Good, good, good,
Yes, yes.
excellent.
I always
And
welcome people to contact me, just for sure, from the community. They can totally email me if they have ideas or thoughts about how we can bring this to the community, or even I'm happy to do education seminars. My email address is my first name dot my last name at yale.edu.
excellent, excellent, and we'll share that, absolutely. Interesting. Uh, let me get spit it out. I talked, as you know, there's an election in November.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of off, well, not off the record because we're in public here. Is that leading? Is this? I'm not sure if you're a political addict like I am. Uh, I guess I shouldn't say I'm an addict online, but at any rate, I am. I'm a high-end consumer of this political drama for several decades. Is your sense that this is leading to, is this increasing people's anxiety, their quote unquote depression, their disassociation? I forget, and separate, I shouldn't say separate from the attempted assassination, but for the bullets that transpired in Butler, Pennsylvania. Any thoughts as you kind of read the news or hear the news moving forward, particularly leading up to November?
Yeah, yeah. For me, I mean, me personally, I actually have made the decision a number of years ago to actually not really engage and monitor the news closely, because it was making my anxiety worse.
Hmm.
Um, and really disheartening to see how we as a society treat each other in public, and the words that we say, how divisive everything is. And it does sort of break my heart a little bit, to really see our country sort of ripping apart to
Hmm.
some extent. Um, and I myself don't know how exactly navigate that, other than to not read it, and to get
Hmm.
my news sort of filtered through my
Mm-hmm.
husband, who is
Good,
that kind of
good,
consumer,
good.
and can do it.
Credible source, credible
Credible
source.
source, it can do it in a way that doesn't cause me to having anxiety. So
I
yes,
like that.
I
I
mean, I
like
would
that.
not, I mean, for me personally, yes, my anxiety is worse. And so I can imagine other people who may be activating different types of things from the past, both generational, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
generational trauma may be activated in fear, and either feelings one way or the other, hatred or sadness, anxiety, worries, those things may all be activated in our collective consciousness in America. And so it will be interesting to see how we kind of heal from this, and if we can even heal from this.
Mm, mm, mm. Let me give you the last word, and perhaps in your last word, you mentioned collective consciousness and your field of psychiatry, and even people. This is a reasonably new field. I mean, 100 years. I mean, we have Plato, et cetera, but in terms of Freud and Jung and the other people, you believe in this, that there's something called consciousness. You believe in.
Yes, I wasn't actually. I was not a believer at all. And then I was meditating a couple years ago,
Mhm.
and was for a very long time. And I actually tapped into something that was pretty profound. And that's have since sort of made me then question, like really kind of open myself up to the possibility that might be a possibility. And so I don't discount it in
Mhm.
that way.
Mhm.
And that I have ever since that day, I felt this. Sometimes I tap into it, sometimes by random, but this kind of connection to others, which I can't explain. It just feels like it's there, and so I would not be surprised if that is the case.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And you're a lady of not just wondering or thinking, but proactively pursuing this hypothesis. So, and I think there's something to it. Jamila, thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate you
welcome.
taking the time. I always enjoyed chatting with you. And again, I have it on record. I have this. We're recording. We're going to come back in the fall. I'm gonna track you down. I'll call hubby first to get permission, but we're going to track you down. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHL.